Welcome to my show. I'm with a guest here. Her name is Karese Laguerre. Karese, how you doing, ma'am?
I am good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, ma'am. Firstly, when I was going through your background, it seems like a more of an emotional and a very, huge struggles during your, childhood time. Can you please walk us through that journey, ma'am?
So, most of my childhood wasn't a big struggle. I did have a child at a young age. So, by the time I was 18, I had my first child. At this point in my life now, I have four. Their lives, we had a lot of early struggles with medical issues and so forth. So, a lot of times, I think as parents, when people ask how everything's going, we tend to give the highlight reel. And so we'll say, everything's fine. This one's doing well in school, or that one's playing, soccer or doing whatever. But we don't really talk about a lot of the things that are going on underneath the surface. So in my household, for my son, there was a lot of emotional and behavioral impulse control issues. Focus and attention was not there. It was a lot that was going on under the surface that we could really see in school, but that I wouldn't talk about, in public. My daughters had sleep issues. So we had night terrors, bedwetting every single night, no matter what we did. There was bedwetting every night. There were sleepwalking. Sleepwalking is terrifying. Sometimes, as a parent, you hear things going on a different floor of the house, and you think that, maybe you're being robbed or something is happening, and it's really your child, and you have no idea how sleeping they made it down a flight of stairs. Thankfully, sleep safely each time, but it's very, very scary. We had upper respiratory issues, chronic nose and ear infections, and a lot of medications and antibiotics on like a hard cycle of those things. So a lot of that really all came together in my story into where I am now doing myofunctional therapy, where despite the differences in how it manifested in them, so whether it was the behavior or the sleep or the upper respiratory and the ability to breathe without congestion, it all really came down to how they were using their muscles in the lower facial region and the upper around the upper airway.
All right, thank you so much, man. And with this issue you had with these children and everything like this, do you have any book you've written that angles that area, or you've not written any book, man?
Yes. So I have a book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Accomplished: How to Execute Goals, How to Sleep Better, Execute Goals, and Eliminate Burnout. And it is a phenomenal story that really follows my own and those of the clients that I've worked with. So you'll hear about my son and how we overcame a lot of what we did by working on how he was using those muscles and how he was breathing, and how the hidden underlying issue behind a lot of sleep problems is not what a lot of people might think, that you're using your phone in the middle of the night, that you don't have, the right mattress or you don't have the right pillow. It's really all in about how we breathe. And so it's a wonderful book that really dives into the science behind a lot of that and then what you can do to help overcome.
All right, man. Thank you so much, man. And you also have a mission. Can you discuss your mission to transform and positively impact as many households as possible through dynamic breath, brain, and body work? Can you walk us through on that, man?
Yes. So, in my work with my own children and uncovering this and seeing the differences in them, just how breathing has really helped them to sleep, to thrive, to grow, I am on a mission to help every family really get to the root of their issues, all of these silent troubles that a lot of us just are not talking about. So, in my practice, I do just more than myofunctional therapy. We work with cranial nerve integration, we work with energy work, we do breath work, we combine a lot of things. We do dynamic breath, brain, and body work to help restore naturally as many people as possible. So, my goal as an international therapist is to touch as many lives as I can and to spread the information to make sure as many people as possible are breathing correctly and using their tongue, lips, cheeks appropriately.
All right, thank you so much, man. I want to go to lifestyle. There are some lifestyles some people do live that used to cause a ADHD symptoms. Can you talk us through with some lifestyle changes that can really, that you find very effective in managing ADHD symptoms now?
Yeah. So ADHD, I think it's incredibly important that we all remember that when it comes down to it, ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is not something that we can go and get immediately identified through a formal test, right? So it's all symptom based. There's no blood work you can get. There's no MRI, CAT scan. There's nothing that's going to identify a particular gene or a defect or bacteria. It's something that's all based on what's the symptoms. So when it comes to something like that, we're really dealing with managing the symptoms of such, but more importantly, we have to determine what might be an alternative diagnosis or a differential diagnosis. So with ADHD, there happens to be in children a 70% overlap for the symptoms and how it expresses itself for ADHD, and how when you don't get enough sleep, so sleep deprivation in children also has a 70% overlap of symptoms between ADHD. So it's a very high percentage for us to kind of gloss over. I think it's incredibly important that we start to take some steps lifestyle wise to ensure that we are getting adequate sleep and to kind of rule out whether or not sleep might be the culprit that is causing the hyperactivity, the lack of focus, the behavior and impulse control issues that often manifest with ADHD. So, with children, in developing a nasal hygiene routine is incredibly important. A saline rinse is the optimal way to cleanse the nasal passages. We want our nasal passages to be open, to be patent, to be clear. Our nose is the optimal way for us to breathe, where when we're taking in air through our nose, that air is getting warmed, it's getting filtered, it is going to be optimally absorbed. We are developing nitric oxide in our nostrils, and that's going to help with the uptake and help to deliver it. That way, our respiration can become cellular respiration, and on that level, help our bodies create energy in our organs and our body to really just thrive. So it's incredibly important that we are breathing through the nose. If you find that your child is mouth breathing, you might want to clean out the nasal passages as a daily hygiene routine. Okay. You also want to be very consistent with your bedtime. If you're not consistent with your bedtime, your body can't really regulate your circadian rhythm. So a lot of people try to alternatively manipulate their circadian rhythm by taking things like melatonin or having like a sleepy time tea or doing a lavender, whatever, to try to get their body to wind down for bed. The best thing is to actually have a routine, because that circadian rhythm is a rhythm. It's something that the more consistent we are, the more we can change and alter the way that it works. So having a consistent routine is going to be the very best way that you can actually achieve better sleep habits and patterns.
All right, thank you so much, man. I want to go to the points of diet, nutrition, food, stuff like that. How do you
Yeah,
how do you think ADHD, management, relates with, diet, type of diet someone use and type of nutrition someone should use now?
absolutely. There's so much research out that connects it with diet and, well, that connects the behaviors and the manifestations in the body with diet. So you can get a lot of inflammation from certain types of food. We can get our body into a poor insulin relationship when we have too many sugars in the body. It's really important that you cut down on the amount of sugars that you have, the amount of processed foods. Processed foods, we don't realize, but everything that comes in a package. So when you have food that comes in a package, with multiple ingredients, many of which sometimes you cannot even pronounce, with all of those preservatives, they're going to have an impact. Some of these things don't break down in the body the way you want them to, and others of them primarily will cause inflammation in the body. So when you find that you're having issues with sleep, with attention, and so forth, having as many whole, clean foods in your diet. And by clean, it means that you're at home, you're making them, you know what the ingredients are. So it's really from as close to farm to table as you can get is ideal. And yes, that might be a little bit more expensive in the long run. But if you have to have processed foods, then you want to make sure that you understand what all the ingredients are. So limit the amount of processed foods in your diet. I don't want to say you have to eliminate it 100%. Sometimes we can't avoid it. Maybe you're in a hospital and you have to, get something out of the vending machine, get something out of the vending machine, and go ahead, feel free to eat that bag of chips. But make sure that you understand what it is that you're reading on the labels. So if you're reading and, if it's a bag of chips and it's potatoes, oil, and then a wide list of colorings, dyes, and preservatives, it's probably not your best choice. So make sure you understand and can read, and that there are no more than 3 to 5 ingredients on most of your processed foods when possible.
Thank you so much, man. That means there are some food that they should try their best to avoid. And you said something like herbal, herbal remedies, something like that. Do you know any herbal that you know that really works in helping someone who is into this HDAD, man?
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, rephrase the question for me, please. I'm sorry.
All right, man. Do you have any specific herbal remedies that you think helps with ADHD, man?
Herbal. So I don't know that I have any herbal things that I would recommend. I would definitely recommend everything's as natural as possible. I mean, you really don't want to have things that are going to be unnatural. And a lot of times, some of the natural supplements that are put out there, they don't contain what you think they contain in them. And a lot of the herbal sciences can be a pseudoscience where the science on them is a little bit skewed towards the person who is funding the science. So we'll have these reports and they won't come out as accurate as we would if they were independently researched. And it's not typically regulated in most countries. And so I would 100% say that if you're going for natural and go for just what you can identify as far as plants and things, and make sure that you are using things that you understand the impact of.
Yes, thank you so much, man. And I remember one time when one of my friend was saying, majority of the herbal, not especially in my country, majority of the herbal, they don't have measurements. So you just see it, you just take it that way. So it doesn't have measurements. Some people don't even know the work. So someone should just be careful with something like that. Thank you so much, man. I want to go to the point of exercise, man. How do you
Yeah.
think, what role do you think exercise play in managing ADHD, man?
Exercise can play a big role. We need to keep, and it's not just physical exercise, it's actually mental exercise too. So, being able to keep yourself stimulated can be a really beneficial thing. Now, with ADHD, a lot of times there's a lack of focus. So, having something that's a bit more challenging, but also engaging or stimulating to the eyes is a fantastic tool. So in mental exercise, something like a Rubik's Cube, where you're trying to solve to put all the colors together, those colors are very stimulating for our eyes. Our eyes are going to remain engaged as our brain is working on the task, and it enables you to, increase your amount of focus and so forth. Having the ability to do something that's a longer physical exercise, like a long walk, a long jog, or a long run, where you're able to clear your mind. I would say focus on your breathing. You can improve your intention in that way too by having the exercise enable you to focus in on just your thoughts or eliminate those thoughts entirely. So if you go for a 30-minute run, that might be the most focused 30 minutes of your day, making sure you're just disassociating because these screens that we have all in our hands, these wonderful little rectangles that we call smartphones, aren't helping us to be any smarter or more attentive. A lot of times they're causing the exact opposite to happen where we're getting a lot of misinformation from things and it's not causing us to have the attention span that we would like as we're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So disassociating, getting physical exercise in, or having stimulating mental exercise is actually really, really great.
Uh-huh. Is that mental exercise I want to go to? Meditation. Do you think it helps during ADHD, man?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is often something that people have to build their way up to. So that's why you want to pair it with a physical exercise. So if you're going out for a run is actually a wonderful way to now disassociate. You're going to be running and maybe, don't bring anything with you. Don't bring a book for a walk. Don't bring any music. Don't bring anything. Just focus on where you're going. In a lot of ways, if you're familiar in the area, you are not going to have to worry about navigation. And so you can just really run as far as you can and then run all the way back. And during that time, you're 100% focused on nothing other than your breathing and your position wherever you are. So that's going to cause you to focus in. You have to zoom in because our body's main priority is safety, right? So as you're going for this run, you're always aware of your surroundings, but you're also able to kind of quiet your thoughts as well.
All right, thank you so much, man. I want to jump to another place, like one place, like I just want to jump. I would just like you ask now, what strategy? There are some environments that the distraction there is just more than anything. So I would just like to ask, do you have any strategy you use that you use to minimize distraction when it comes to your environment now?
Distraction doesn't have to all be bad. Some distractions can be good. And most people with ADHD do like a little bit of distraction. That way they can refocus on the task once they get back to it. I think that's a really big aspect of ADHD that they need a little bit of disassociation before they come back. But when you are dealing with the environment where you need to focus, like you're at work, I would say you need to have something stimulating for that distraction, like a Rubik's Cube, like we talked, like a little nice mental exercise, a Rubik's Cube or a similar puzzle. That way you can focus your attention away and come right back after a minute or two of dealing with the puzzle and then come right back. If you're trying to limit your distractions, then you might want to have something that isolates you in the environment. So if you're working on a screen, having a timer or something that's going to keep you focused on what's going on in the like upper corner of the screen is a great way to kind of keep yourself on task. Giving yourself a certain amount of time is also a really great task because then at the end of that timer, now you're going to have your little break or you're going to be able to, remove yourself from the situation. So giving yourself a set schedule or focus, I think is a really great tip.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. I know you have a book currently now, ma'am, but I would just like to ask if you know any book that you can recommend to for ADHD management, ma'am.
There's a really great book, The Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve by Stanley Rosenberg. Now, it's not specific to just ADHD, but it does talk about that. It talks about ADHD, it talks about autism, it talks about a lot of different things, but how you can get to the root of all of that by working on your cranial nerves. So, just dealing with the brain. It's got wonderful exercises in it, wonderful refocusing exercises as well. And so that's a great tool. I really recommend that book highly.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. Ma, like, how do you try your best to structure your daily routine to support better focus and organization, ma'am?
For myself, when I'm doing my calendar, I like to block schedule. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, but I think block scheduling works really well for me. To organize my day, I have to have what task I want to get done, and I put that and I schedule time specific for it in my calendar. And so that even includes scheduling time for a break or for lunch or for a nap or whatever. But if I have it in the schedule, I know it's going to get done. So if I give myself a certain amount of time for a task, if it's an important task, it gets a bigger chunk of time. If I finish early, then I get to move on to another task, or I have a longer lunch that day or something. And so block scheduling, I think, is the best way for me to organize my day.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Under the ADHD management, is there any advice you would like to give to the audience, ma'am?
Yeah, when it comes to ADHD, again, just remember that, it doesn't have to be a set diagnosis. It's a symptom-based diagnosis. If you feel like there is something else underlying, or it might not be the correct diagnosis, I would say advocate for yourself. I think that that is not talked about enough. It doesn't have to be where you go to the doctor and the doctor says something and you have to 100% take that as the gospel. It is something where if you would like a second opinion, seek a second opinion. You can see a second doctor, you can see a third doctor. There's always going to be a medical professional that's willing to hear you, to understand where you're coming from, and to know that you are aware of your body in a way that science can't really ever explain. And so if you feel like something's wrong, or you would like to try different diagnoses, or explore different options, advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself, make sure that you go and you see the providers who will listen and who will take the time to address your concerns.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I just like to ask, Mrs. Karese does not look like an American name. Are you born in America, or you are from Africa, then you branched to America?
I was born in America. My parents are from the islands, so I am I have West Indian descent, Barbados and Saint Vincent in the Caribbean.
Okay. Okay. There's a question I normally ask from the ancestors, from the forefathers. If there is anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, ma'am?
Grounding. We don't get our feet on the ground enough. I think that I would bring back 100%. Also, from our ancestors, we ate more whole foods. There was less processed foods, there was more chewing. These are the things that are really important for our bodies. So I would say grounding and getting our feet to the ground, picking up those electrons from the earth, being able to really connect adequately, and having whole foods as like the general standard.
I really agree with you because the food of today, sometimes I used to get bigger.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Bye bye.
Bye.